A very good morning to you all, and thank you for joining today's session. We shall be kicking off right now, and we hope others will join us as we make progress. Today, it's our online session for the 2023 RIMA Foundation IIM Africa National Digital Transformation and Data Protection Awareness Workshop. The initiative we started in 2020 was actually initiated to help to raise awareness in the area of digital transformation initiatives being embarked upon by organizations in both public and private establishments. And you all will agree that in Nigeria today, we have the National Data Protection Initiative being championed by the Nigerian Data Protection Commission and now signed into law by the government, which is the Nigerian Data Protection Act. So the two organizations, the Institute of Information Management and the RIMA Foundation, could see the need to ensure that the citizens and the populace are well and properly informed, talking about the new law, and they are able to identify their roles and responsibilities in ensuring that they are able to comply appropriately. So today we try to make the session as brief as possible and also ensure that we're able to take away salient information, knowledge, and understanding about the subject matter. If we have any question at any particular point in time, we can always put our questions in the box. We'll try as much as possible to respond to the questions. And by way of introduction, my name is Ambassador Dr. Ayodeji Iwole-Iluku. I'm the president of the Institute of Information Management and also the president and founder of the International University of Information Management in the US, and currently the country chief data officer ambassador for Nigeria, coupled with my role as the president of the RIMA Foundation. Okay, taking a look at the lineup of participants, I think the session can actually progress. So while we make progress in this presentation, we will appreciate if you type your name, your organization, your job role, and your personal objectives from this session in the comments box. I will appreciate that. We want to meet you, and we also want other people to get to know those that are on board. So getting or delving into the presentation proper, we're going to start by getting to understand what data is, what information is, what digital transformation as an initiative is all about, the importance of digital transformation, the various benefits it engenders. We'll also be looking at some of the opportunities and challenges that digital transformation has actually got, to offer. Then we'll be looking at the impacts of digital transformation on organizations. We're looking at how manual tasks could actually be enhanced, via automation and technology. We're looking at some key frameworks and standards in digital transformation. Then we move on to an all-important tool that organizations and government can actually rely on, for effective digital transformation regime. Then we look at the benefits, the impacts, and individual organizations on how they can align with the Nigerian Data Protection Act, leveraging on enterprise content management platform. Then we'll look at data protection, its importance, and the actual law, being passed into the actual bill being passed into law in Nigeria. So I will also identify and I look at how sensitive data can be classified, how they can be identified within the organizations. We'll be looking at some of the best practices in actually protecting our sensitive data. Then we'll be talking about an important tool which has to do with our policy and procedures. Then we'll look at implementing a data protection framework, the compliance, audits, and best practices in achieving, the objective of the Data Protection Act. So getting into the presentation proper, we are actually starting with our knowledge in the area of data and information. Because these are key elements that are essential in ensuring that at the end of the day, we're able to achieve an effective and cost-effective system that will ensure our organization is able to comply appropriately with the Data Protection Act. So what is the data? I want us to have an interactive session because the audience here is not too much. So you can raise up your hands if you want to contribute at any point in time. Then you'll be given the floor to make your contribution. So if I would ask, what do we think data is? Do we have any volunteer in the house that want to define data? The keywords data. We already displayed something about data on the screen, but we want to hear from you. We want to understand. We want to know how much or how well you understood what data is. Any volunteer in the house to give us a definition, a personalized definition of data. What is data? If you want to contribute, unmute and let us have your, raise your hands first, then your name will be called, and raise your hand. Let's see the number of people on the platform right now. So just signify by raising your hands online, and you'll be given the floor to make your contribution. Okay, I can see Joy Udumosu. Okay, kindly unmute and let's have your contribution, please.
Yes, sir. Data can be defined as the collection of facts or statistics that are used for reference and analysis as well.
Thank you for that contribution. I can see another hand up. Oluwasegun Bello, you have the floor. Go ahead if you can hear me, Oluwasegun Bello. I'm not sure if others can hear you. Please, can you indicate if you can hear the speaker?
No, I can only hear you. I can only hear you, but I can't hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you too, sir, but I can't hear Bello.
Okay. Bello will have to speak up or try to look at the mic, because I notice he's saying something, but it doesn't seem to be audible. So we're waiting for your comments. We're waiting for your comments, Oluwasegun Bello.
Okay, sir. So data is simply collection of intelligence or information for a particular purpose.
Thank you for your contribution, and also thank you, Joy, for that input. Do you have another volunteer in the house? Okay, in the absence of additional volunteer, let's go straight to the points. And the point is that as professionals in the field of data and information management, whenever we have a question like this, we should always try as much as possible to avoid the use of certain keywords. Keywords like information or records or documents when we are defining data, because data is the basic facts, is the basic elements when we're talking about information management. And at the point at which you are defining data, it means it is still not usable. When we say not usable, it means it's still, permit me to use the word useless, because at that particular point in time, data doesn't have any value. And what it means is that for data to be valuable, something needs to happen to it for it to have a meaning, for it to have value. For example, if you have a registration form being given out to a number of delegates, let's say to all the delegates on today's platform, let's assume we're given the registration form to be filled. And after collecting the registration form, just as one out of the 16 delegates that we have here return a filled form that has just the surname, you all will agree with me that that form is not going to be useful. And that form is not going to be relevant to whatever purpose or for whatever reason that you have actually requested for such information. And that is what we're talking about when we say data is useless at that particular point in time. It means additional data would be required for such data to begin to have or to make meaning. So when we're defining data, it is not important for us to cram or to memorize any definition for data, but for us to have a clear understanding of the context, for definition. So when we're to define data, we define data as raw facts. Raw facts. So when we say something is raw, it means it is not usable. Something that is raw is still in a meaningless state, which means you have to apply certain things or certain processes to it before you can actually make sense out of it. So in other words, you can define data as a raw fact that needs to be processed before it can make meaning or before it can become useful. And from what we have on the screen, it could be values, it could be numbers, it could be alphabet, it could be combination of numbers, it could be, anything you can just imagine that you can bring together, to ultimately make sense and give value. So data is a raw fact that needs to be processed for it to be able to make any meaning. So that brings us to the next keyword, which is information. So from the explanation we've had earlier, we can now refer to information as processed data. So if you're defining information or you are required to define information, you can simply refer to information as a processed data, which means you've actually been able to transform all the data you have collected into a usable and meaningful, entity. So information, in other words, can be defined as processed data. That is, anytime you are able to put data together in a context and in a form that human being can relate to, that human being can use, then the data has transformed to become what we refer to as information. So anytime you're able to bring together any facts or any data, and you're able to communicate it to a third party, and they are able to make sense out of it, then you can also refer to it as information. So in other words, by the time you're able to put data in a context that is usable, then you can refer to such as information. So I believe that is clear enough, differentiating between what data is and what information is. So next, on our list of keywords is digital transformation. So a lot of times, people get to hear or speak about digital transformation, but you notice the fact that such people might not really have an in-depth knowledge or information about what we're talking about when we use the word digital transformation. And from the definition you all can see on the screen, we describe digital or define digital transformation as a process of using technology, to enhance whatever existing business processes or products or services that you already have in existence, or leveraging on it to create new businesses. So in other words, digital transformation can help organizations to achieve their business objectives through promoting efficiency, productivity, and also customer experience in the course of carrying out their day-to-day activities. So if I have to summarize all of this, I would say that digital transformation provides an opportunity for an organization, to promote excellence in their operations through the use of technology, or even enhance whatever product or services they have got to offer, leveraging on technology to reduce costs, to reduce error, to also ensure that information is timely provided, and the quality of decisions being made by the organization is also being enhanced upon as a result of the quality data that the organization is now open to through digital transformation. So take a look at what we have on the screen. We have the process being outlined. That is, for you to actually transform digitally, there are certain processes that you actually need to put in place and also ensure that, it's available within your organization. The very first one is digitization. So digitization is simply talking about your ability to be able to transcribe whatever assets that you've got physically into digital formats. So what are the assets we're talking about now? These are some of the collaterals that you leverage upon to carry out your day-to-day business activities. So for example, let's assume you are a fashion designer and you're wondering that as a fashion designer, how can I leverage on digital transformation initiative? The very first thing is, as a fashion designer, you have catalogs where you showcase some of the designs that you can actually, provide to your clients. We also talk about, some physical assets too that you might want your customers to see, or even potential customers to see, so that they can actually patronize you. So digitization will give you the opportunity to ensure that you're able to convert those assets into digital formats so that you can leverage on them digitally. Leveraging on them could be placing them on digital platforms like social media platform, on your website, on different portals where you can reach out to your potential client. That is what we refer to as digitization. Digitization would give you the opportunity to convert from physical to digital, formats. Then the next thing to do after your conversion is to make sure that you're able to digitalize whatever physical process or processes that you currently run within your organization. So what do we mean by this? We're actually talking about the fact that you looking inward, look at those processes, look at those activities, those things that you ordinarily perform physically in the course of your day-to-day business activities. So how do you transcribe these processes into digital processes? And it is this process that we refer to as digitalization. So digitalization is different from digitization. They are related, but they are not the same thing. So the ability to be able to transcribe all the physical processes into digital processes is digitalization. That is making processes, your physical processes, automating them through the use of the digital platform. So for example, now, let's assume that as a fashion designer, like I mentioned earlier on, what you do is you make clothing. And after making those clothing, you display them, maybe right within your showroom or right in front of the organizations for potential customers to see. If we assume that has been the trend, that has been your business process, that has been what you're used to doing. In order for you to digitalize now, it means you need to get certain equipment and ensure that you're able to capture some of these assets digitally. You could employ the services of a camera, for example, a digital camera, to take a picture of some of the clothing you have made, some of the products you already have, existing products that exist physically. So you can use a digital camera or other devices to capture them, to make them readily available digitally. So that is what we're talking about when we're talking about digitalization. By the time you have digitized them, the process of taking them, putting them, showcasing them physically within your showroom, now digitally, you can create platform or you leverage on existing platforms. Like we've got lots and lots of digital platforms like social media platforms where you can actually showcase your products and services. So digitalization will now mean that the digitized assets is being uploaded on the digital platform that you intend to leverage on. Examples of digital platform that you can leverage on include Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. There are so many of them out there that you can actually leverage on. So what that means is that within your organization, you are going to develop a process where employees within your organization would know that for every product they have produced physically, they need to capture them digitally. Then after capturing them, you also need to document, you need to identify, document the process of digitalizing them, which means that after digitizing those assets, how your employees or the third-party individual that you have engaged, to help you take this process out there in the internet superhighway, what they need to do at every given time, you need to identify these processes and make sure that they are properly documented so that you can ensure that you're able to adhere to standards when putting up some of these assets online. So when we talk about standards now, standards could include the particular resolution at which you are capturing these digital assets. Because if standard is not in place, there is possibility that the quality of certain digital assets that will be captured will differ or will vary from time to time. And there might not be consistency as to the quality of the digital products that you're actually producing. So when we talk about standard, we're talking about resolution now. If you are capturing an image that you're going to use on a social media platform, you need to set a standard of resolution that such components should be captured. So depending on the platform that you intend to use this, you might want to consider certain standards that will be appropriate for the particular platform that you're uploading them. Although this particular aspect of the process will be a bit technical, because a lot of times when we talk about digital transformation, most organizations or individuals think it's just about getting devices to capture documents or whatever digital assets that needs to be captured. But there are lots of consideration that you have to put in place before you even think about, capturing some of these things. And part of it happened to be what I mentioned, which is resolution. Resolution of a digital assets will go a long way in ensuring that what you are putting out there will be attractive to the people that you are targeting online. So by the time you have digitized them and you've digitalized the process, digitalizing them, automating the process and ensuring that you've been able to capture them and they are now readily available online for your customers to access, to subscribe, to purchase, and to comment and also do all sorts online, then it means you have now been able to achieve digital transformation of your business process, which means that, rather than relying on people that physically come to your showroom to take a look at your digital, your products and services, now people can access your products and services online. They can actually place order for your products. They can pass information to you in terms of comments. They can review, your products. They can give testimony online for other potential customers to see how good your products and services have been able to meet their expectations. So all of these processes are what you need to put in place in order to ensure that you're able to leverage on digital transformation, because the ultimate aim of digital transformation is to ensure that individuals, organizations, and governments are able to leverage on it in order to make life a lot more comfortable for them. So let's take a look at some of the opportunities and challenges because all of this beautiful scenario that we have painted now doesn't come that easily or cheap. There are certain hurdles that organizations have to, scale through to be able to take advantage of this. The very first one, you all will agree with me, is change. Because most of the time, people always resist change. People don't usually want to change from whatever process they are used to. So change is a major challenge. I remember when the digital landscape started growing, a lot of people would resist the use of computers to get certain things done. They will tell you they are used to doing them manually. But we all could see the rate at which the digital landscape has also gained ground across the globe now, because virtually every other process that we're exposed to in our day-to-day activities have been transformed digitally. Even when we talk about electricity now, if you want to, subscribe, or you want to renew, or you want to recharge your electricity, gone are those days where you have to go to physically go to the service provider's office. Now, leveraging on technology, you can just log on to their websites, indicates the unit of electricity that you're interested in purchasing. You make payments without even leaving the comfort of your home. And before you know what is happening, you already have the token for you to do a recharge. So that is a process that has digitally been transformed. I can go on and on to mention a number of scenarios that have been transformed digitally. So you can imagine people that resist change. Now it becomes an Herculean task for them, because what it means is that rather than leveraging on the platform, they have to physically spend resources to go to the service provider's office to pay, even to queue up. You can imagine the resources that will have to go in just for somebody to recharge their electricity. So the digital transformation would provide all of these opportunities to help you to cut down on costs. It will help you to cut down on the resources that will be required. Even the timing that it will take for you to get certain tasks done will drastically be reduced. So the next challenge that organizations and individuals are faced with is in the area of knowledge and skills now. Our people need to evolve, they need to acquire certain skill sets to be able to use some of the tools, leveraging on digital transformation. So you all will agree with me that no individual will be able to take advantage of this without having the required computer skills. Computer knowledge is very, very essential. It's very, very important for us to be able to take advantage of, technology and what digital transformation has got to offer. And in order to acquire skills and knowledge, it doesn't come easily. It means you have to dedicate certain resources to it. In terms of time, we look at it in terms of the time that it will require. Even sometimes you might have to part with, some funds, to be able to achieve that. For you to even get online, you need to do a sort of investment in the area of providing access to the internet, which means you need to have an active data on your device for you to be able to log on and to be able to access the various platforms on the internet. So lack of skills and knowledge is a major issue, is a major barrier. If any organization is going to embark on digital transformation initiative, they need to invest in the area of training and skills development for their employees that will be using the platform. The next one is legacy system and infrastructure. A lot of times, organizations, might not see the need for them to upgrade their systems. If we have to go by the trend at which IT keeps evolving by the day, you observe the fact that, different devices are being released every other second. Application packages are being upgraded. And some of these tools that we use are being improved upon. So you can imagine a system that is running on old legacy systems, old operating systems, old application packages, a system that is not having up-to-date, application on it. It might be difficult to deploy certain tools and certain solutions on such a system. So this is also a serious barrier to digital transformation, as organizations might need to evolve and also invest in the area of infrastructure by making sure that they have the latest applications, latest equipment in terms of computers, servers, and other tools that will be required, to be able to leverage on it. Then another issue that we are confronted with is security and privacy concern. The fact that the platform has given us a lot of opportunities to leverage upon does not mean that there are no threats, that there are no challenges, and there are no barriers, that could actually hinder a successful transitioning from manual process to digital, processes. Security is one very important area, because the same way we are exposed to security physically, in fact, the digital landscape exposes all to information risk. It is called information risk. We're all exposed to information risk, because anytime we have any device that is connected to the internet, it means we are exposed to information risk. We all have telephones, we have computers, we have different kinds of devices connected to the internet today. And the primary concern is security of our information online. How well are we protected online? And a lot of times when we talk about security, security is usually being breached as a result of lack of skills and knowledge. You could see the relationship now. Individuals spend a lot of money, organizations spend a lot of money investing in telephone, investing in equipment, investing in computer system, but most of the time don't spend enough time to acquire the necessary skills and knowledge to be able to know the do's and don'ts of this equipment that we're investing in. And even some organizations don't even see the need to ensure that their employees are trained. The only thing they focus on is technology implementation. So you can imagine if you spend millions of naira, implementing security measures and controls, installing servers, installing antivirus, installing firewalls, and making sure that your system is running on the latest application packages, without recourse to ensuring that the employees within your organizations are properly skilled, they are properly trained, they are properly exposed to the do's and don'ts of the platform that is being implemented and how they can leverage on it in order to achieve their day-to-day activities, the objective of the organization, and also to be able to meet and exceed customers' needs. So without adequate education, investing in security, investing in equipment and applications will just go down the drain as a result of ignorance on the side of a single employee within the organization. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that employees within the organization happen to be the most important assets, followed by information. So the employees that are the most important assets in any organization also happen to be the #1 threat to any organization. So what we're saying is that an employee that is not properly trained and that is not exposed to adequate knowledge, the risk associated with the use of the system could actually jeopardize and also put the organization at risk. So when employees know the do's and don'ts, they know how to create information, they know how to classify information, they know how to store information, they know who to share information with, they know where to store information, they know how to protect information adequately, and ultimately when it comes to disposition of information, they know what they need to do. So this is what we are referring to, because security and privacy is a major concern. A lot of times, some organizations will tell you, oh, we don't want to, we're not putting our information on the internet, in the cloud, or anywhere, because we have concern about security and privacy. So once an organization is able to overcome some of these challenges that we've talked about, then they will be able to take advantage of the several benefits being provided by digital transformation. On your screen, you could see how robotics is being explored in retrieval of information digitally. Now we're going to we've looked at some of the challenges. Now we're looking at opportunities, which comes in varieties of ways. So digital transformation can actually help an organization, to evolve, because sometimes as an organization, we might not even realize some of the potentials that we have in terms of products and services. We might just be focusing on a particular product or a particular service. But digital transformation would open the opportunity for us to be able to see other areas that we can actually leverage on as an organization. Then it can also help us to improve in the area of productivity and efficiency, which means that I think I mentioned something about that earlier on. Because now the kind of resources, the level of resources, and the type of resources that you usually would require to carry out your day-to-day activities, can be reduced now. And when we talk about reduction in resources, it will help to promote efficiency and productivity. And in terms of the cost of operation will drastically drop. You can imagine a situation where you have to print a magazine to be distributed to people, either for sale or free of charge. You can imagine the cost implication that will go into producing those materials physically. But if you are to produce them digitally now, the costs will drastically reduce in the sense that you're only going to be spending on the production, the digital production of those assets. You don't have to buy papers to print. You don't have to pay a publishing outfit to do the printing for you. And you are going to be able to create a lot of opportunity around that. In fact, you can even create affiliate links to your products and services, and you'll be sharing it with people that would also be making profit. They'll be generating revenue by sharing the link to your products and services online. So the digital landscape provides lots and lots of organization. Again, you are going to be competitive in the sense that those people that are competing with you within your sector would have to buckle up, because now you have far more reaching audience out there. The digital landscape is going to give you an opportunity to reach out to people, not within your immediate vicinity alone, but across the globe. There are no boundaries anymore with the digital landscape. No boundaries. You have the opportunity to reach out to people. In fact, you could actually have people ordering your products from abroad, overseas. And ultimately, you'll be able to enhance customer knowledge, customer experience with your brand. And as a result, your revenue will grow and your organization will be able to scale up. So digital transformation could impact an organization in several ways, like we've been talking about. It could help to create new job opportunities, job roles, the way and manner in which you carry out your day-to-day activities, and the kind of skills and knowledge that you already have, the need for you to enhance on them, and the way you even interact, fraternize, and associate with your customers, with your sponsors, with your patrons, with partners, even with government agencies. Now, if you have to comply with certain regulations or certain laws within the environment in which you operate, you don't have to physically go and do certain filings anymore. Most of these activities, you can do them online. And the changing competitive landscape, depending on how smart and how receptive the organization is, you can take advantage of the digital landscape to ensure that you are more competitive in your line of business. So data protection is essential for digital transformation because it can assist organizations to ensure that sensitive data is protected from unauthorized disclosure, access, use, modification, and also, destruction. So what are we talking about when we say sensitive data? Because if you have good governance over your data and information, as individual and organization, you should be able to evolve and be able to classify the kinds of data that you generate in the course of your business. So by the time you're able to do proper classification of your data, there and then you'll be able to identify those data that are sensitive. So when we talk about sensitive data are those data that could have a negative or drastic impacts on your business if it gets into the wrong hands. So an example of sensitive data could be religion, it could be sexual orientation, it could be health related, it could be, and so on and so forth. There's so many kinds of, sensitive data that you might not really want to share with the outside world. And not until when you have proper classification in place, you cannot achieve this. And also let me use this opportunity to also, call our attention to the fact that when we talk about digital transformation initiative, when we talk about digitalization, all of these things we cannot achieve if we don't have governance within our organization. So when we talk about governance, we're talking about data governance, we're talking about information governance, we're talking about records governance. So governance in the sense that we are able to have the necessary procedures, the necessary processes, the policies in place, the necessary algorithm, the necessary, flow of things properly documented. Because in a lot of organizations, most of the time when they run into problems of data breach and the root cause analysis is being carried out, you find out that it's usually as a result of lack of proper governance. So when we talk about governance, governance will help you to ensure within your organization that certain individuals are given certain responsibilities. So in a situation where you do not have individuals with responsibilities, it means the organization run what we refer to as information risk. You are prone to information risk, which means that at any particular point in time, your information will get into the wrong hands and it could be used against your organization. So data breaches could have a devastating effect or impact on organizations, which could lead to financial losses, it could lead to reputational damage, it could lead to even legal liabilities if not properly handled. So what are the key data protection risks and challenges still in the digital landscape? Primarily is cyber attack. A lot of times, there are lots of people out there that are not happy with your progress. There are lots of people out there that are looking for ways to take advantage of you and your organization online. There are lots of people that are out there to ensure that the only thing they want to do is to disrupt your business and ensure that they are able to bring down your businesses online. And this is where cyber attacks come to play. And that is why we talk about education of the employees. It is very, very important because there's no amount of solution that you deploy if the employees don't understand all of these things that we're talking about. They could endanger your organization and put you through that risk. The next one is human error. Human error also occurs when the users do not have the necessary knowledge and understanding. And sometimes there could be systemic failure. That is, your server could go down, there could be power outbreak, there could be power shutdown, there could be any kind of failures could happen. That is, we're talking about downtime. Downtime, it means the period in which your customers are not going to be able to have access directly to you online. That's system failures. It could happen. So if it happens, what are those plans that you have on ground to be able to mitigate this? That's what those are part of the risk that you have to consider. Then we talk about insider threats. Insider threat has to do with, I mentioned the fact that the employees are number one assets and they are number one threat to any organization. So you want to ensure that with proper classification of your data and information, with individuals being assigned their roles and individuals understanding the ethics and ethos of managing information. For example, within your organization, if you have been able to do proper classification and you have critical assets, that is, you have sensitive data, sensitive information, you have them properly classified. Those kind of information, those kind of data could be managed, or access to those kind of data will only be restricted to certain employees within your organizations that are professionals in nature, that understood the ethics and ethos when we talk about data and information management, that are certified professionals that know and have the knowledge about how things work in this area. Then another threat is compliance to laws, regulations, and other requirements within the industry or sector in which we operate. This is also a major challenge. Now that we have a data protection law in Nigeria now, a lot of organizations are going to be having issues in order for them to be able to comply. Because some of these things that we have mentioned now, they have not put those things into consideration. So these are risks that organizations are exposed to. And non-compliance, we all know the risk that is associated with non-compliance with regulations and laws. Reputational damage, the organization could be made to pay huge fines that would affect your operation as an organization. Even your, your profits could be affected. Even in Nigeria, we've had certain organizations being penalized for non-compliance, for data breaches, and so on and so forth. In 2021, an organization in Nigeria was made to pay 10 million naira fine. Another organization in Nigeria was made to pay 5 million fine. If I ask you about this regulation and this act we're talking about now, I'm sure, okay, before we proceed, how many of us have heard about the Nigerian Data Protection Act? Let us raise our hands before we proceed. Just raise your hands up if you have heard about the Nigerian Data Protection Act. Raise your hand if you have heard about that before now. In the course of our presentation last week in Lagos, we were stunned because a good number of, in fact, I would say 98% of those that attended the sessions were hearing about the Nigerian Data Protection Act for the very first time. And this is an indication that we have got a lot of work to do, which is part of what we are doing right now in order to sensitize people and also to let people know about this. So even here now, we're about 16 of us, and we could see the population of people that are raising their hands up. They're not even up to 50%. And you all will agree with me that in law, ignorance is not an excuse. So it means that organizations are exposed to information risk. Is an information risk that organizations are currently exposed to. So thank you for those that raised their hands. You can lower your hands now. So we'll get into the second session, which has to do with leveraging on technology, for our organization to improve on efficiency and also to take advantage of digital transformation landscape. So we can actually use technology to do so many things, most especially those tasks and responsibilities that are repetitive in nature. So rather than repeating certain tasks manually, doing them over and over again, which could be time consuming, we can actually leverage on solutions, software solution, on technology. We can use robotics to do so many things. Like you saw in the previous slides, using robotics for retrieval of files, within the repository. You can use artificial intelligence, to predict certain occurrences happening in the future based on machine learning, based on the data that has been collected in the past. So these are several ways in which technology can actually help us to demystify some of the challenges that we're actually facing today in our businesses. So in the area of communication and collaboration, we can also leverage on technology. There are lots of platforms that exist today now. Like this session we're having now, I could remember in the last, let's say 10 years ago, if we were to have this kind of session, we will have to invite you all to come together physically in a room, to be able to do it successfully. Because even as at 10 years ago, we had some, pockets of online platforms like Skype, where a session like this could be held. But in terms of, the society accepting that as a means of disseminating information, as a means of educating people, was very, very low. It was at the lowest ebb at that particular point in time. But today we're leveraging on technology. A lot of us are located in disparate locations, and we're able to take advantage of technology to be able to attend this session. So these are some of the ways that technology can actually help us, to communicate and collaborate. We can also leverage on technology to share documents. We can review documents, digitally, regardless of our locations. I remember those days in the oil and gas sector, whenever we were working on multi-million-dollar related projects, we used to have colleagues of ours operating from other locations outside of our continent, outside of our country, outside of the immediate states we're operating from. And then we're able to simultaneously review documents, pass comments on documents, do different kinds of review on documents, and we're able to carry out our responsibilities seamlessly without having to physically meet. So technology can help us to make better decisions in several ways. We can leverage on data analytics to identify certain patterns and trends as things are evolving. Because a lot of times why organizations do not make good progress is because we leverage on manual processes, we leverage on our human abilities and thinking. For example, as a country now, for the lawmakers to be able to make and develop certain policies that would help the populace, they need quality data. They need to ensure that they are able to leverage, they are able to collect data that are complete, data that are authentic, data that are reliable, data that the source can be verified. So based on that, they can make decisions by leveraging on the trends, on the pattern has been indicated through an application. In computing, we have a general saying that garbage in, garbage out, which means that it depends on the quality of data that you are providing the artificial intelligence platform or any kind of computer-aided, tool that you want to leverage on. If you feed in data that is not of high quality, then that will actually determine the quality of the output that you are going to get at the end of the day. So the input determines the output. So for organizations to be able to leverage on technology or digital transformation, to get the best out of it, then the quality of data they are leveraging on will be a huge factor. So you can simulate a lot of scenarios. You can predict the outcome of certain occurrences using artificial intelligence, using technology, to leverage on all of these opportunities. So they are not just going to happen overnight, or it's going to be like, it's not just going to happen. It's not a magic, and there's no magic wand that you can employ that will just execute and give you results like that. You have to follow all these processes as we have been outlining them for you to be able to take advantage of them. Even as individuals too, you can begin to build skill sets around some of these things so that you become invaluable, so that you can act as consultants, you can help organizations. When we talk about digital transformation initiative, you can help them to initiate the process right from conception to implementation to maintenance, and also ultimately ensuring that organizations are able to gain ROI on their investments. ROI as in return on their investments. And you all agree with me that, you know, return on investment in the digital transformation landscape, it's something that you can get as fast as possible. So what are those guidelines and principles that we have to put in place as individuals, organizations, and government in order for us to be able to take advantage of all of this that we've been talking about? The number one thing is for you to have a very clear strategy and vision about what you want. That is, you need to know the end from the beginning. What that means is that you need to envision where you want your organization to be, where you want your organization to get to, the level of service and services being provided, the kind of, you know, the kind of service that you'll be providing, the kind of mindset that you want, the kind of image you want to create about your organization in the presence of your patrons, in the presence of your clients, both existing and potential clients. Once you're able to have that vision, then the job is half done. Then number two, for an existing organization or business, you have to be customer-centric in nature. Customer-centric in nature means you have to, everything and anything you do have to evolve around your customers, because you're actually out there because of your customers. Any organization that is existing, that is into existence, the ultimate reason for being in business is to serve your customers. You must have a particular customer you are serving, both within your organization and outside of your organization. And that is why your activities, your operations has to be customer-centric in nature. That is, you have to base whatever decision that you are making on what we refer to as customer experience. Customer experience is what determines the progress in any organization. It is what determines how far a product is going to get. Because if customers are not happy with your level of service, then it means you'll be losing customers. If they're happy with what you are providing, they will tell other potential, they will inform other potential customers, and those potential customers will equally patronize you. And in this particular game we're talking about, it's a game of number. The more clients you have, the more profit you make, and the more your organization will begin to grow. Then the third thing to focus your attention is what we refer to as becoming an organization or an individual that is data-driven, which means that whatever decision you're going to be making at every point in time has to be based on data. A lot of times we make decisions out of our own emotions, out of our own intuitions, out of our own feelings. You might just be feeling about, you might be having certain feeling about certain things, and based on that, you are making decisions. There is no way a decision will be made based on all of this that I've mentioned, that you are going to be able to get a desired result or desired outcome. And that is why, as an organization, as individuals, as governments, we need to ensure that whatever decision we are making, either in formulating policies, in providing infrastructure, in providing resources, in even coming up with our budgets, annual budgets, we need to ensure that all those activities are driven by quality data. And you all will also agree with me that in Nigeria, that is why year in, year out, we're about Nigerian budget running to billions of naira. And at the end of each year, we don't actually get to see any value from all those billions. It's simply because they are not based on data. Those activities are not data-driven. And once they are not data-driven, you don't expect quality outcome at the end of the day. Then you also need to embrace change. We've talked about that earlier on. Change is pertinent, it's very, very essential. Because by the time you have a vision, you are customer-centric and you are data-driven now, definitely that will disrupt the process you already have on ground. And that is going to mean that the various stakeholders that you have identified at the beginning of your initiative or project. When we talk about stakeholders, who are the stakeholders we're talking about? We're talking about your employees. We're talking about your customers. We're talking about your patrons. We're talking about your sponsors. We're talking about your vendors that you interface with that supplies you products and services. We're talking about those individuals that has got one or two things to do that would obstruct, that will affect, that will disrupt your business processes. All of these are the stakeholders, and you have to consider them when you are implementing an initiative as massive as digital transformation. Because if you have a platform that your employees are not going to use, then it will be a venture in futility. If you have a platform that your customers are not comfortable in using, then it means you might not be able to achieve your business objectives at the end of the day. If you have a platform that any of your stakeholders are not willing to use, then it will be effort in futility. So you need to invest in people and make sure that you create desired awareness, desired expected knowledge, expected education around your business, your new business process, the skills they need to, to acquire, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, you need to partner with others. A tree, they say, cannot make a forest. Organizations that are thriving in today's world are leveraging on other organizations' resources. Individuals that are thriving in today's world are leveraging on the knowledge being, available to them through their friends, through colleagues, through other individuals that they interact and interface with within their network. And there are so many means that we can always and usually leverage on this. If you attend industry-related events, like if you attend conferences, if you attend road shows, if you attend trade shows, different kinds of activities that bring professionals and individuals, stakeholders together within your industry. You'll be able to network with people. You'll be able to leverage on what they have. Your strength might be their own weakness. Their weakness might be your own strength. By the time you interact with people, by the time you network with people, by the time you fraternize with people, you're able to identify all of this. And you're able to synergize. And at the end of the day, you are able to create an ecosystem that engenders a win-win kind of a scenario. And by so doing, you are happy, the people within your network are happy, you're able to achieve your business objective, leveraging on other people's resources, leveraging on their skills, leveraging on their knowledge, their exposures, and other resources that they have. So these are some of the principles that are very, very key. They are very, very important to the success of any digital transformation initiative that we may or we might decide to embark upon. So when we talk about framework, you might want to build your digital transformation initiative framework around certain principles, around certain regulations, around certain laws, around certain specifications, standards, and so on and so forth. So the Nigerian Data Protection Act is serving as a standard for businesses that are operating in Nigeria today. We also have the ITIL standard, that is the Information Technology Infrastructure Library standard. We have project management standards. We have data management standard. They have their own book of knowledge that you can actually leverage on. We also have the ISO standards, that you can leverage on. We have GDPR. We have the POPI standard. If you're an organization, operating in South Africa, you can leverage on POPI. If you are operating within Europe, you might want to leverage on GDPR, to formulate whatever policy that you want to evolve in within your organization. So that leads us to the third session, which has to do with leveraging on technology now, leveraging on tools for us to be able to comply with the requirements, that the digital transformation and data protection has actually, imposed on us. Because all of these innovations, all of these initiative and occurrences, is imposing on us certain responsibilities. And in order for us to be able to effectively live up to expectations, we've been talking about technology now. So it is important for us to be able to position ourselves and our organization in a way that we can leverage on technology to take off a lot of this burden from us. Because like I mentioned earlier, most of the things we do offhand, most of the things we do based on our own knowledge, they are not foolproof, which means that you can't guarantee the success. You can never guarantee the success of the initiative leveraging on your own knowledge alone. So before we proceed into the third session, how many of us have heard about enterprise content management system before? Kindly raise up your hands. Let us take a look at the population of those of us that have heard about ECM systems before now. ECM system, if you've heard about ECM system, kindly raise your hands up. Enterprise content, are you with me? Kindly unmute, and somebody should unmute and say something so that I know that I'm still connected.
I can hear you, yes, sir.
I can hear you, sir.
So only one person has heard about ECM. Wow. Wow. Okay. I have two hands up out of, okay, the number has reduced from 17 to 13 now. We have just 2. Wow. So we have a lot of work to do in the area of awareness creation, which is part of what we're having right now. So thank you, Friday. Thank you, Blessing, for raising your hands. You can now lower your hands. ECM is acronym for Enterprise Content Management System. This is a platform that an organization can actually leverage on to take full advantage of digital transformation initiative. So if any organization that doesn't have this in place now is missing out. So we're going to look at what ECM is, the benefits, and how we can leverage on it. So from the definition you all can see on the screen, ECM is talking about software application that any organization can leverage on to manage their digital assets and content. So we've been talking about digital assets, how you can convert your physical assets to digital assets. The moment you convert your physical assets to digital assets, it means you need certain systems to be able to effectively manage them. So when we talk about managing your digital assets, we're talking about providing proper security for them, providing authorized access to them, providing good preservation for them, providing quality storage for them, and ensuring that they are not preserved beyond when they are supposed to be kept, which we refer to as the retention period. So they can also be used to automate workflows, collaborate on documents, and secure sensitive data. What are we talking about here? We talk about digitalization, and digital transformation. Digitalization is actually about workflow, which means that within your organization, anything that you do manually, you need to digitalize them, which means that you have to create a workflow, a manual workflow that will be transcribed into digital workflow. So I'm going to give you an example now. I'm going to domesticate it so that we can relate with what we're talking about. For example, now, let's assume you want to make food, and the kind of food that you have decided to make is called eba. or gari as some other people would call it. If you want to make eba or you want to make gari, for example, you know that you need to boil water before you can do that. So let's assume that rather than boil water, you decide to just put water in the pot and you put your gari directly into a cold water. At the end of the day, what you are going to get is not going to be eba. It's not going to be the eba you want to make again. You're actually going to get a different thing. And the same thing is applicable. Let's assume you want to make, let's say, you want to make another food that you have to prepare online. Let's say semo, for example. You also want to make semo now. You pour your water in the pot and you pour your semo directly into cold water and you begin to stir it. At the end of the day, you are still not going to get the desired semo that you want, which means that you have not complied with certain processes. So what it means is that you have to state it. There is a process you need to follow. The very first process is called creation of algorithm. Algorithm. When we talk about algorithm, it's not the algorithm, although it's still the same way in an advanced form. When you talk about digital landscape that we have today, when you talk about maybe social media platform, having an algorithm to monitor how individuals, how people, how they interact online. But now we're talking about algorithm in its natural state, which means the definition is a step-by-step method of doing anything you can imagine in this world. Anything you want to achieve, you need to break it down to a step-by-step process or step-by-step stages. That is what is referred to as algorithm. Algorithm is a step-by-step means of achieving a particular task. So like the food I use as an example now, you say that, okay, let's develop an algorithm for making of eba. The algorithm for making eba, number one is you need to get the resources. That is the resources that you need to make eba, because we already know, we actually set out earlier on to say that if you are going to embark on an initiative of this nature, the first thing you need to do, you need to have a vision and strategy. So what's the vision in this eba scenario now? The vision is that at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have eba that is properly and professionally made for human consumption. That is our vision. The vision is to have gari that is professionally made and save quality for human consumption. That is our vision. And that is what we want to achieve at the end of the day. That is the expected output or the outcome of the initiative. So to start with our algorithm now, the first stage is to get the resources. What are the resources that we're going to be needing? We need to get the raw gari. We need to get cooking utensils. We need to get water. We need to get spatula and other material that will be required to stir the gari when we are making it. Then we also need to get energy in terms of gas that we're going to use to make the preparation. That is stage one. Stage one is getting the resources and making sure that you have all the resources on ground before you even start implementation. So the next step could be for you to, put the water on fire, leveraging on the resources you have on ground. That is maybe the pot, putting the pot on the gas, adding water to it, allowing it to boil. So allowing the water to boil is part of the process now that we're talking about. Boiling water is processing. So by the time you boil the water, after the water has gotten to boiling point, then the next thing is for you to apply the raw gari into it and to stir your gari. And after stirring it, maybe you put it down and you begin to serve it. And at the end of the day, you have a gari or eba that is professionally made. And available for human consumption. So the same thing is applicable to all businesses. There is no business that we are involved in today that does not have its own process or processes. The only thing is that there's something we call in the knowledge management parlance, we call it tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge, that is, there is a particular way that you already memorize certain processes within your organization. That you don't even need to open a manual, you don't need to go through a step-by-step or a standard operating procedure, SOP manual, to be able to carry things out. Simply because you already have a tacit knowledge about that thing. It's already in your memory, and you can do it even without looking at the book. So what we're talking about now is that by the time you have all these processes being identified, you can now note them down. You can write them down and say, this is stage 1, this is step 2, this is step 3, step 4, step 5, till you get to step 20, where you get the final output and the desired outcome. So by the time you do that, you can now deploy this digitally by creating what we refer to as a workflow. What has led us into all this explanation is for me to explain the keyword workflow to you, because some of us might be hearing it for the first time, might be wondering that what's the meaning of workflow? Because before you can have a workflow, you must have been able to develop an algorithm the same way I've just explained it. You must be able to understand the process or the processes involved. Then you now use a tool like an ECM tool, because an ECM tool will come with a module that will enable you to create a workflow the way you like it. You can create a workflow based on the processes, on the algorithm that you have created. So by the time you have an algorithm in place, so how do you build a workflow? You build a workflow using certain tools. The common tool that you find and that is common out there is called flowcharts. You hear some people talking about flowcharting. Before you can do a flowchart of any process, you must have first and foremost created the step-by-step method, which is the algorithm now. So based on the algorithm, you can now create what we refer to as a workflow, as a flowchart, sorry. You create a flowchart, and that flowchart is what has transcribed what you have done manually into digital format. So the moment you now have a workflow, the workflow will now determine the tools that you are going to be using within the ECM system to create a workflow. So when you create a workflow, you could when you have a software that has already been programmed, all you just need to do is just to click on a button. You say, okay, you want to send email, for example, in an email system now. An email system already has all these things inbuilt. You have to, number one, you compose a mail, you put the title there, you put the recipient of your mail, you put all their email addresses there. And the next thing you do, you click on attach to attach a document to it, and you click on send. The moment you click on send, send will help you to send it to all the people that you have indicated in the recipient field. So the same thing is what we are talking about here. I'm just explaining this for you to understand what is going on at the back end. Most of the time, if you're having an ECM system, the integrator or the company that is supplying such a software tool to you, they will help you, they will have helped you to build some of this workflow. And what it means is that your organization will have to pay them. You have to pay them service charges. You have to pay them for their consultancy to develop a workflow, either a workflow for document review, workflow for document submission, workflow for vacation application, workflow for payment, workflow for salary. Because what it means is that at the end of every month, you don't have to be creating your payroll over and over again. Once you have a single workflow developed for payroll system, what you need to do at the end of every month is just to be pressing a button that will be processing as an HR person. You just click on a button Now, okay, I am ready. We are ready now to process the payroll for the month. All you just do under a few seconds is just to click on payroll button, and the workflow on at the back end will process it. And all the employees, even if you have up to 1 million employees in your organization, they will all receive their pay slip within seconds. So you can see the power of ECM system now, leveraging on the workflow, and you're able We are sorry for the break in transmission due to
We're sorry for the break in transmission. It has to do with the network. We're trying to ensure that we're able to connect the system being used for the presentation. So the session will continue shortly. Session will continue shortly. So do we have any questions so far? If there are questions, please put your questions in the comment box. We'll try as much as possible to respond to them. We'll try as soon as possible to make sure that the questions are being attended to. This particular session we're just trying to collapse it into a few hours. It's actually a session that could last for days. So we're getting back online shortly so that we can continue with the session. So these are some of the key points that we made earlier on. As part of the challenges, associated with digital transformation, we mentioned the fact that there could be system failure. So this is a typical example of a system failure that when we are embarking on digital transformation initiative, we should always have this at the back of our mind, because whether we like it or not,
recording in progress.
Things and situations like this are prone to occur. So it has to be considered in what we refer to as disaster recovery plan and program. So as an organization that is embarking on a digital transformation initiative, disaster recovery program should also be captured in our policies and also be implemented. So back to our presentation, our ECM system can be used, in the area of collaboration. People from different locations can simultaneously review documents, pass comment on them, and have such a document consolidated by an assigned personnel. So what are ECM systems? ECM system can be used to manage the entire life cycle of digital assets or content, right from the very point of creation to capture, to storage, and ultimately the disposal of the content. So it can also help organization in the area of productivity, efficiency, cost reduction, and improvement and enhancement of customer experience. I think we summarized this in the past. So ECM system can actually, there's no limit to the kind of formats that you can actually capture or that you can use ECM to manage. You can use ECM to manage. You can use it to manage documents, different document types, different formats, images, videos, audio clips, email, social media posts, and several other types of content, that you generate in the course of your business activities. So ECM system is not restricted to any particular discipline. You can use it within the healthcare sector. You can use it within the financial sector, insurance, education, government, business development, engineering, legal, retail, and so on and so forth. Within an ECM system, you could have different components like you can have a document management, you can have knowledge management system, you can have content management, you can have EDRMS, and so on and so forth. So you may decide to deploy it you may decide to deploy an ECM system in two different modes. We have the on-premise mode, and you also have the cloud-based mode. When we talk about the on-premise, it means you might want to have an in-house server where this solution is being deployed. Or you might say, oh, you want to save your organization the stress of updates, the stress of support, the stress of backup, the stress of disaster recovery and everything. You want to pass it to a third party. Then you might want to be looking at the cloud-based solution, which means that the cloud-based solution, the entire application will be hosted by a company providing SaaS. SaaS is SaaS, Software as Service. So in this particular situation, you don't need to buy server. You don't need to buy server. You don't need to bother yourself about updates. You don't need to bother yourself about security or access, threats by hackers or whatever, because the organization that is providing you the platform, these are some of the value-added services that will be provided to you. But typically, cloud-based systems are less expensive to implement, because now you are not talking about server, you are not talking about even employing a professional IT person to manage your server, but they may not offer much control and flexibility like you would have when you have on-premise implementation. So here are some examples of this of how ECM system can be deployed in different organizations. Because some of us will be thinking, say, okay, in an hospital, how can we use ECM? Which area of our operations? That virtually every aspect of the health sector will require an ECM. An example is an hospital, that uses ECM to manage patients' records. Then most of the time, all of the time, if a patient has to go do like a scan or all this kind of imaging and the rest, you can use this ECM system to manage them. Then other related document that has to do with your health care, that has to do with caregiving, that has to do with health records of the patients being treated. You can actually leverage on ECM to also manage them. In the financial sector, a bank can use ECM system to manage loan application, customer statements, customer file, and other related financial documents. Insurance company can also use it to manage claim forms, policy documents, and other insurance documents. Any government agency can use ECM, to manage citizens' records, government form, and other government documents. With ECM in place, you can be rest assured that schools will not be telling you that they can no longer find your records. They cannot find your scripts, your examination scripts, or even your certificates or your transcripts, could have been lost in transit. They can use ECM system to ensure that all of these documents are available and also accessible at the press of a button. So the university can use it to manage student records, course materials, and other academic records, academic documents. Manufacturers can also use ECM to manage product-related, documentation, product specification, engineering documentation, engineering documents, engineering reports, engineering, engineering for any kind of engineering documentation that you can think about. They can also use it to manage vendors' records, vendors' documents, manuals, catalogs, and so on. So a retail outfit or a retailer can use it to manage product catalogs, marketing materials, and other retail documents. What are some of the benefits that it will give you? These are some of they are synonymous to all the benefits we've been talking about when we talked about digital transformation, which has to do with efficiency, productivity, cost reduction, customer experience, compliance, and its ability to help you to reduce the information risk that your organization is exposed to. So what impact does this ECM have on digital transformation now? That is, the impact it has is that it helps you to automate the manual process, the manual tasks, the manual responsibilities. It improves collaboration because now you can share documents with other people, regardless of their location. It also enables new business processes. It supports compliance and help you to mitigate the information risk we have been talking about since morning. So what are the key features and capabilities of this system that we're talking about? It has content capture and storage. That is, it can help you to capture, we talk about, digitizing your digital asset from physical to digital now. So by the time you convert it and you want to use it in digitalization, ECM can help you to capture it and also store it appropriately for future reference, for future use, and for future decision making. It also manages all the various types of content that you may have. We saw different kinds of content, from audio, from video, from different types of file types and the rest. You can use it to also automate the workflow, the flow chart you have developed now. You can now use the system with the tools that, that came with it to automate your processes. Then you can use it as collaboration tool, security and compliance. A lot of times, some of the compliance requirements, you could actually automate them within a system that you don't have to do manually. The system will automatically be set up, to automatically comply with certain requirements. So how does it align with data protection now? Most especially the Nigerian Data Protection Act. So to ensure that ECM system are in alignment with NDPA, your organization needs to, first and foremost, I've briefly spoke on this when I was talking about the process. That is, you need to identify and classify all the various data type that you have in your organization that you are going to store in your ECM. Classification is very, very important in information management and data governance. Because if you don't classify data and information, you are not going to be able to know those that are sensitive, those that are vital, those that are important, those that are ephemeral in nature. So in order for you to be able to separate them, you need proper identification and classification of your data sets. Then you also need to implement different security controls to protect sensitive data. In fact, an example I can give you is your telephone. The telephone you have, a lot of times, most of us, we just buy a telephone, we put in SIM, we migrate our contacts, and we begin to call people, we begin to receive calls and so on. We don't bother to go into the system itself. There are certain features within the system that by default will have been enabled that you as a user needs to go in and deactivate. By not doing so, it means you are exposing yourself, you are exposing your organization to information risk. And again, the sad aspect of it is that anytime we expose ourselves to information risk, if there is data breach at the end of the day, it's not going to affect us alone, because it's also going to affect other stakeholders that we are connected to. For example, now, if you look at Facebook or any other social media platform, if your account gets hacked by an hacker, the hacker is not going to stop at you alone. The hacker can go as far as trying to contact your friends, people you are connected to, and be soliciting for funds. They might be soliciting for a recharge card. They might be asking them, pretending to be you. They will steal your identity and start using your identity to solicit for help, assistance, aid from people, money, recharge card, and so on and so forth. So you can see the far-reaching effects of not being proactive and not being able, to use tools appropriately. Because a lot of times when people complain about being hacked, personally, I always tell them that you must have opened yourself up to being hacked, and that is why you've been hacked. And it's simply because of the knowledge and skills you are talking about. If you have a system in place, apart from your phone, a software application, you need to make sure that you go into the settings, try to see all the features that it provides, and try to see those ones that are in compliance with your company
policies that are in compliance with regulations, set them up. For example, your phone will give you out at any point in time. That's talking about your location tracking now. Maybe you have not deactivated it. And it means any software that is connected to your phone can easily be used to track your location. That could be sensitive data, it could be sensitive information. Some people could be tracking you. I remember, was it last year before the last, when America was trying to get a leader of a terrorist group. They actually track the person's location, and they were able to use drone to fire a shot to kill, which killed that particular individual. So you can see how location could be a sensitive data that you want to protect. You don't just want people to be able to track you easily and be able to know where you are. It could be for good, it could be for bad. So you need to also ensure that you conduct regular audits, not only data protection audits alone. You conduct an audit of your system. You want to make sure that your system is in compliance in terms of updates, your antivirus, your application software, your operating system, you are operating using the most recent and the most up-to-date version of them. Because a lot of times, all these service providers, they keep improving on their software offerings. And anytime they identify certain bugs, loopholes, they are called bugs. Bugs means an avenue that a third party or an hacker can leverage on, to get into a system, either to siphon data or, to use the system in a way that is not authorized, or in a way to take advantage of the system to their own personal gain. So if you are running an operating system that has been upgraded, it means the organization that released the upgrade has seen certain features that needs to be improved upon. And as a result, they've decided to roll out an application to get that done. So if you refuse to upgrade, it means your system and your organization will remain exposed to the threats. And that is why we need to make sure that we use the latest applications. Then you also ensure that TCM system has appropriate data retention and disposal policies in place. The moment you're having an ECM and you've classified your record appropriately, it will give you an opportunity to determine how long you are expected to keep certain information. So it is going to be based on the various classes that you have actually set up. So there are a number of case studies that we could have gone into, but because this class is just a one-day class, we are not going to be able to go into that. We have case studies, we have best practices that talks about how to choose the right ECM for your organization, best practice on how to implement ECM system successfully. These are some of the areas that we could have gone into, but being a half day, I would even call it half day session, we will not be able to go into that. So the first session is talking about data protection, and for us to have the fundamental knowledge in this particular domain. So data protection is the process of protecting sensitive data from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, modification, or destruction. So we want to make sure that all the data and information we collect in the course of our businesses, we're able to protect them. Then it is important because it helps to protect organizations from different risks, that is financial loss, reputational damage, legal liabilities. We've also talked extensively about this now. So there are some regulations, there are some laws that exist across the globe, and Nigerian data protection, as we've been talking about, is the Nigerian aspects of it. We also have the GDPR. I also mentioned that earlier on for the European countries. We also have the CCPA in the United States of America. We have POPI in South Africa. So talking about the Nigerian Data Protection Act now, anytime we collect personal data, we have actually invited certain responsibilities to ourselves as organizations, as individuals under this law. So what it means is that anytime you're collecting data, maybe data of your employees, HR data, maybe employees' data in the HR, or maybe it has to do with data about individuals that attended a particular program organized by your organization. That is a responsibility you are stepping into. And that is a responsibility you have to live up to, because now there is law. And like I said earlier on, there is no ignorance in law. The organization, every organization in Nigeria now that collects personal data has responsibilities. So on the 12th of June 2023 in Nigeria, the government of the day signed in the Nigerian Data Protection Act. It is actually set up to protect personal information of individuals and businesses that are operating in Nigeria. It also brings Nigeria in line with global data protection standards and reassure foreign investors. Because before now, prior to this present moment, a lot of organizations are always skeptical when they want to come to Nigeria, because we were not having data protection regulations and laws. And I think 2019, we had the first regulation, which a lot of us don't even know about. So the government of the day, they've upgraded the regulation now. We now have a full-fledged data protection law in Nigeria. So that is a huge congratulations to Nigeria as a country, because now a lot of foreign organizations will feel that they are protected, operating seamlessly within the Nigerian environment. So what are now the key objectives of this law? It is to protect the rights of data subjects. Data subject is a key word in data protection. So what is data subject? Who are data subjects? You and I are data subjects. Anytime you collect people's data, the people you are collecting their data are the data subjects. So the law wants to make sure that data subjects are properly and adequately protected. They are empowered. A lot of times, even in hospitals, you find out that after paying for some tests, the hospital might not even release your medical reports to you. They might not even give you the outcome, the report of the tests you have conducted. All of this, the Freedom of Information Act and data protection, both of them are out to ensure that as data subjects, we have rights and our rights are protected. It's also to provide the legal framework for regulating and safeguarding personal data. Because prior to now, I remember when GSM came in newly to Nigeria, you found out that you were receiving series of broadcasts. Some people are sending SMSs to you, and you'll be wondering, I did not subscribe to this. How come they got my number? Why are they sending me all of these things? All of these are some of the reasons why this law has come to stay. So it's also ensured that data controller and processor fulfill the obligations to data subjects. So you are the data subject, you that gave out your data, you are the data subject. The data controller and the processor are those entities that collect your data. The data processor sometimes are those people that collect on behalf of an organization that is referred to as data controller. Then safeguarding fundamental rights, freedom and interest of data is a fundamental right for you. That is what this law is saying now. The protection of your personal data is a fundamental right. It's the right to freedom to you as a data subject. So it strengthens the legal foundation of national data economy. In Nigeria, for years now, we've been talking about digital economy. And we at the Institute of Information Management, we've been telling them, there is no how you can have digital economy without recourse to data and information management. And some of the laws that would help to promote data and information management is this Data Protection Act, the Freedom of Information Act. All of these laws are how to promote information governance, data governance, records governance in every organization. So data subjects, the identified individuals, that is, identifiable living individuals to whom personal data relates. So anytime personal data is collected, the person we're talking about as data subject is the owner of the data set being collected. So data processor is an individual, an organization, an entity that is processing data on behalf of another organization that is referred to as data controller. So what are the scope in this particular law now? It applies to whether you are processing the data you are collecting manually or you are processing them digitally. Because some people might say, we are still operating manual processes in an organization, so it doesn't affect us. It affects you, whether you are doing it manually or physically. So it applies to entities domiciled or operating in Nigeria. It also applies to some organizations outside Nigeria that are processing data of Nigerian residents and citizens. Exempt personal data processing for personal or household purposes unless it violates a data subject fundamental right to privacy, because there are certain exemptions in the law also. Then it takes precedence over conflicting law. Like I told you earlier on, that we have the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation now. This Data Protection Act has taken precedence on it now. So anything or anytime there is a case in court or there's an issue, it is this law that will take effect. So what are the governing framework for processing personal data? Anytime you want to process personal data, you must ensure that you process it lawfully. When you are processing somebody's data, it has to be lawfully processed, because the person can actually take your organization up and cash out on it. If they take you to court, they can make a lot of millions from your organization for non-compliance. Then you also need to define personal data and sensitive data when you are doing your classification within your organization. You need to set the principle for data processing, including accountability, data minimization, and data security. All of this will be embedded in your ECM system, which means you don't even have to do some of these things and all of these things manually again. Once you set it up once and for all, the system will manage it for you. Then what are the bases for you to collect data of individuals? Number one, you need to seek consent as the lawful basis of collecting it. The reason why you are collecting data, they need to know, okay, you want to record people, you have to tell them you are being recorded because we're using the recording as part of our training materials. We can display it on our website, we can share it with partners, we can use it for promotional purposes, and we can do so, and so. You have to carry the data subject along. Then consent must be freely given and specific. That is, like before on this Zoom now, before you are being recorded, Zoom would, on our behalf, they will ask you that you are being recorded. You have to accept it before you continue with the session. So there are other important lawful bases that you can leverage on to collect personal data, including contract performance, legal obligation, public interest, legitimate interest, legal claims, substantial public interest, and so on and so forth. So minors or those lacking legal capacity, consent must be obtained from their guardians. For example, there are certain individuals that are incapacitated. Maybe they are sick or whatever. There might be need, to seek consent from their guardian, the person that is sitting in for them, the person that they are, maybe it could be their, what's it called, their next of kin or the custodian. Then consent must not be required for vital interest, education, Medicare, legal proceeding, or public interest. So what are the rights of data subjects now? They have rights to know if the data will be processed or for what purpose. So the data subject that you have collected their data at any point in time, they can ask you to ask you what you are using the data for. They also have the right to say, I'm withdrawing my consent, which means I don't want you to process my data again. You have to remove my data from your database. They also have right to data portability, and so on and so forth. So now we talk about data security. Data controller and processor, that is you that you are collecting data, must ensure data security. I mentioned earlier on that collecting data is now putting you in a situation where you have to be more responsible. You have to be able to act and to be able to perform additional tasks in ensuring that the data you have collected have been securely stored. So appropriate technical and organizational measures are also required to be put in place, like processes, standard operating procedures that we talked about the other time, so that your organization employees do not haphazardly share information or disclose data that are not supposed to disclose. Measure also includes pseudonymization, encryption, risk assessment, and testing of whatever system that you have in place. You want to make sure that they are functioning, they are working. A lot of times, some organizations will back up, certain information, certain data, and they will think the backup was successful, but not visiting those things to check to see if the backup was successfully done. It might be when they have a system crash that they want to restore their system. That is when they realize that, oh, the backup we did the other time we did not back up successfully. And at that particular point in time, it will be too late. So data controller must notify the Commission of breaches. Anytime there is data breach, it is the responsibility of the data controller to notify the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, most especially when the data breach is huge and is affecting a lot of people. But if it is something that is minimal, you might not really report it. But if you have a data breach that is huge and you fail to report, and there is a whistleblower inform the commission, by the time they do their root cause analysis and assessment of your system, and they find out that, number one, you are not in compliance. You don't have system in place that would also help you to comply. The kind of fine they are going to give you will be affected by the findings. The fact that you even have a system in place does not mean you cannot have data breach. So you've not even made any effort. You have not done any data audits. You have not put anything in place, no education of your employees and everything. The fine they are going to give you will be huge. Because this law now is requiring you as an organization to make sure that every year you train your employees on data privacy and data protection. So for those of you that are attending this session now, you have helped your organization to achieve this requirement. Because as at the time of evaluation, as at the time of audit, they are actually going to ask if your organization has trained the employees on data protection. So when we talk about cross-border data transfer, it's talking about personal data being transferred from one country to the other. So transfer of personal data abroad is always restricted. So if you have any need to transfer personal data, then there are certain processes you need to follow. There are certain requirements you need to meet. Then permitted only if recipient country offers adequate protection. This is another requirement. Assuming a company that is operating in Nigeria has a home office in South Africa and they need to move the data of the users there. If their country does not have a data protection law, then this permission might not be granted. And you could see why we said congratulations to Nigeria, which means if a Nigerian company or organization is operating abroad and they need to transfer and use data of citizens in Europe, in Nigeria, they have to be able to demonstrate that Nigeria has they have enabling and applicable laws that will ensure that once those data are transferred to Nigeria, they are protected. Then regulations and guidelines will also specify some additional requirements. So requirement for data controller and processor of major importance, they need to register with the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. Then registration requirements include detailed information about their data processing activities. So talking about compliance penalties and dispute resolution, data controller and processor needs to comply with the law. The commission can issue compliance order. Penalty for non-compliance varies based on the entity importance. Then civil claims are allowed for data subjects. Like some of us that have CCTV cameras. If you install CCTV camera and you have not put any sign to inform people that they are being recorded, they can cash out on your organization. They can sue your organization for recording them without their consent. negotiating in court. So data controllers and processors can be held vicariously liable for their agent's action. So if you are giving a task to somebody to help you collect data and the person fail to comply, the organization can pay dearly. They can pay dearly for that. So the commission has replaced the NDPP, like I mentioned earlier on. The agreement and document remains in effect. That is, the Nigerian Data Protection, whatever law, whatever contract they sign with anybody, is still very much in force. It's still very much active until it expires. So compliance with the Act is essential for businesses and organizations operating within Nigeria. So how can you identify and classify sensitive data? I talked to you about identifying the various categories, which means you need to know the various data types that is being used by your organization, the sensitivity of the data, the legal and regulatory requirements of all those data are what you as an organization need to be able to identify. So some of the best practices is implementing strong security controls. You need to educate employees about data protection. You need to conduct regular audits. It's very, very important. It's also part of the requirements that every organization needs to comply with. You know, you have to make sure that you train your employees. It's part of that requirement. So, section 5 now, what are those practical steps you need to take in order to ensure that you are in compliance? Number 1, I talked about having the necessary tools in place. And an important tool is policies and procedures. So while you want to develop a policy for your organization, you have to consider the type of data that your organization collects, how you store it, where you store it. Then you also need to consider the legal and regulatory requirements that is applicable to the individual data type. Then what are those risks, the various risks that the organization is exposed to? So a data protection framework needs to be put in place, which is a set of policies, procedures, technology that your organization can leverage on to protect data and information. So the moment you decide to implement a data protection framework, your organization needs to consider the following steps. You need to identify the organization data protection and goals. You need to assess your current data protection posture. Where are you now? Have you implemented something before, or your organization has not even recognized the need for them to do it? You need to know where you are. And you need to develop and implement data protection policies and procedures after you have put all those ones in place. Then you deploy appropriate security measures, taking advantage of technology. Like I mentioned earlier on, you can go and configure your technology so that it protects data and information. Thereafter, you can now begin to monitor and maintain the data within that particular system. Then compliance and best practices. In order to be compliant, you need to conduct regular audits with that. In fact, I think I've mentioned this, this is the third or fourth time I mentioned in this presentation. Then you need to involve all relevant stakeholders in the audit process, because if you don't involve them, you know, they might miss out certain things, and that could expose you to risk. Using a risk-based approach to your auditing, you need to document every fact that you're able to gather in the course of all this process. You need to make sure that they are properly documented. Then what are the best practices for achieving compliance with the law? What are the best practices? What are the best practices? I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, I can still hear you, sir.
Okay. Okay, so what are now the best practices that you need to put in place? Number one best practices, you know, we talk about education and skill development, blah, 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 about your employees. In any organization, according to this law now, if you have a data breach and your organization is to be penalized, the CEO of that organization will have to face the music if they do not have a personnel that is dedicated to the task called the DPO. DPO is Data Protection Officer, not police DPO. So you need to have a DPO. You assign a DPO that is going to see to the implementation of all of this that we've been talking about since the beginning of this presentation. Then regularly, in order for you to be compliant, you need to be conducting impact assessments. It's called the Data Protection Impact Assessments. You know, that will help you to identify gaps and what you need to do within your organization to remain compliant. Then you also need to obtain consent from the various stakeholders before collecting their data, before processing their personal data. You need to provide individuals with access to their personal information anytime they request for it. So you need to also implement appropriate security controls. You need to report data breaches to the Nigeria Data Protection Commission, like I mentioned. And on that note, we come to the last session. Now, talking about all that you have presented this morning, the key takeaway for all of us, if I have not taken anything away from this session, is that the fact that we need to understand what digital transformation is all about, how we can use it to create new products, how we can use it to enhance existing products, how we can use it to promote and also to ensure that our organization become more profitable, how we can use it to reduce the risk that our organization is exposed to, and how we can use it to promote efficiency and performance within the organization. So on that note, we've come to the end of the session. But before we say goodbye, we want some of us that are joining the Institute for the first time to get to know about the Institute of Information Management, which is an international, it's a professional international institution with chapters in 9 countries. Those 9 countries are the countries that you are able to see on the screen as we speak. And the institute was actually founded in 2010 by the Records and Information Management Awareness Foundation, the same organization that came up with this data protection and digital transformation awareness campaign. So the institute was created in 2010, and the first chapter in the United Kingdom was created in 2017. In 2018, that was when other chapters were created, and in 2019, the same foundation founded the International University of Information Management in the United States of America. So as a professional institute, what do we do, or what services do we provide? We provide membership. So what are the various membership categories that that exist within IAM? We have students, for students that are still in school. We have graduates, for fresh graduates with little or no experience. We have associate member for any professional in any discipline that has a minimum of 2 years of experience. We also have professional membership grade for any professional in any field that has a minimum of 5 years. Senior professional is for those that have a minimum of 10 years. 15 for those that have 15 years is for fellows. For those that have a minimum of 50 years of work experience. The corporate membership is open to any corporate organization that is duly registered as a corporate entity by the government. So the Institute of Information Management, like you saw, that we have different chapters across the globe. You can see on the screen, those are some of the chapters in the US, Nigeria, UK, in Australia, in South Africa, in Ghana, in different countries. You know, these are all the various chapters where events and activities, training, convention actually take place. And joining the Institute as a member will give you opportunity to visit any of all these chapters across the globe. The Institute provides you with documentation for your visa. The Institute ensures that, you know, as a member, we monitor your progress in terms of profession, in terms of the data and information management profession. We guide you, we provide counseling, we provide guidance, we provide mentorship, so that at the end of the day, you succeed as a professional in this field. So on the screen, you can see some of our leaders in Canada, in UK, in South Africa, in Ghana, and so on and so forth. And in Nigeria, the IIM is, we are accredited and we have partnership with the National Accreditation Body in Nigeria called NINAS. And over the years, we have presented our bill to the National Assembly. And last year, July 7, to be precise, we were at the National Assembly where we presented our bill to become a chartered institute in Nigeria. The institute is also affiliated and we partner with different international organizations across the globe. We provide training opportunities in different areas where individuals and professionals can take advantage of. Then we provide certification. We have two kinds of certification. The general certification is called the GIMC certification, General Information Management Competence Certification, which the Institute developed in 2015, so that all employees in every organization will understand their roles and responsibilities in managing data. That was before we had the regulations and the law in Nigeria. So it's a one-day training program that employees can attend. And for those that are professionals in the field, they are expected to take certification program. And if they pass, they get certification of participation and also professional certification. On the screen, you have the badges we give to professionals that have passed our professional certification. Our professional certification is in 4 stages. We have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and the last stage is the final stage called the master stage, which means candidates can actually subscribe, you know, to become certified. So if a candidate passes stage 1, he or she moves to stage 2. If he or she passes stage 2, he moves to stage 3. Then after passing stage 3, they have the opportunity to select one out of this 10 master certification program where they are going to have their master certification. So you can see on the screen, we have IMP1, IMP2, IMP3. IMP is acronym for Information Management Professional Level 1, Level 2, Level 3. So the last one, which is the master certification, we have 10 master certification where they can actually subscribe. So on that note, I want to use this opportunity to invite you all, not just to attend our session alone, become part of the IIM Africa family. We have got a lot of opportunities. We have got a lot of platforms you can leverage on to achieve your professional goals, for you to achieve your career goal. The institute is also open to different kinds of collaboration and partnership. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any idea or any initiative you want to share with the institute. On that note, I want to say a very big thank you for listening to this presentation. If you have questions, if you have comments, please feel free to unmute. Now you can speak to the mic to ask your questions before we end today's session. We also have other sessions that will be coming up in the coming days in different organizations that are subscribed. This particular session was actually designed for those organizations that are not having enough people to train and do not even have the facility to, to host such a training. So thank you once again for your time as we look forward to your questions. So I have a question. Somebody is asking if the slide will be shared. Yes, we are going to share the slides to the attendees. So any other question? Okay, in the absence of further question, we might have to round up. If you can open, if you can activate your camera, please kindly do so that we can take the group photograph. Activate your mic and let's take your pictures. Sorry, your camera. Activate it, please, if you can. If you cannot, we're going to take it like that. So we are still waiting for the rest. Okay, we're going to take the pictures now. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for attending. Like we mentioned in the correspondence that went out, those that might be interested in the certificates, the amount for the certificate, I think it was indicated in the broadcast. Training departments, please, you can unmute and also still, for the benefit of those that might not be aware, what's the cost for the digital certificates and the physical certificate of attendance of this session, please?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, for the digital certificate, I hope you cannot hear me.
Loud and clear.
Okay, sir. For the digital certificate, it is 30,000 naira, while the hard copy, it is 40,000 naira. So we expect you, you're going to send a message to the training mail. I will type the training mail in the chat for those people that want to request for the certificate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that information. Please don't let us limit all this information to ourselves. Let us spread the word. Anywhere you find yourself is an opportunity to talk about digital transformation, is an opportunity to talk about data protection. It is important. More people need to be aware because, like I mentioned, ignorance is not an excuse. We don't want the image of our organization to be battered in the public like that just for no cause, simply because we are not in compliance. So it's a necessity, it's a requirement, and we need to continue to develop skills and knowledge in that particular space. It is very, very key. It is very, very important for us to have that at the back of our mind. So please, by the time we share the slide with you, also share with other people. It's knowledge, it has to go around. And if you want the certificate, like they mentioned, you might want to document your knowledge and the knowledge and skills you have acquired from this this brief session. So it's an opportunity for you to take advantage of that. I can see that the training email has been shared for the benefit of those of us that might want to contact the department for one or two things. So on that note, I want to say a very big thank you. We're still going to be having our quarterly training will be coming up very soon. I think on the 3rd or the 4th of next month. Then we also have the webinar, the IIM webinar for the month of November. Most of us will have seen the broadcast, the banner. We've actually shared it there. So we look forward to seeing you. And to those of us that are in Abuja, please join us November 11 in Abuja. We're having our annual summit and induction in Abuja. And we're also going to be having our master class for those professionals that want to become CDO ambassadors. If you want to be a CDO ambassador, the program in Abuja is an opportunity, for you to become a CDO ambassador, adding a feather to your art as a CDO ambassador. So on that note, we want to say once again, a very big thank you for your time, for your listening, and for being part of the 2023 online session of the National Digital Transformation and Data Protection Awareness Workshop. Thank you and remain blessed.